Good evening, everybody. Michigan Storm Chasers here. Chief Meteorologist Joel Fritzman alongside Drew. Say hi, Drew. And we are, again, the Michigan Storm Chasers here, coming to you live on this Tuesday evening, just past 7:05. Welcome in to chat Julie, Summer, Trisha, Dee Dee, Robert, DJ, East, Tangi, Jen on Facebook. Thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. Again, we have right now a severe weather risk in effect for tomorrow afternoon and evening here across the state of Michigan. And we actually have a low-end severe risk coming up on Thursday as well, which we will also go over at the very end of the live stream. But to start off, we are going to go ahead and get right into what will be the severe weather outlook here as soon as it switches over. There we go. So here is your severe weather outlook from us that we released earlier this afternoon on Facebook. You can see there on your screen that is a level 4 risk for the center of the state. So that level 4 risk does include portions of central southern Michigan, so Lansing, Hastings, down towards Jackson, Battle Creek, Ann Arbor, and down there towards Coldwater and the state line. Level 3 elsewhere where you see in yellow. And then as you get north of US 10, we have issued a level 2 and level 1 risk, which is a low and a limited risk for severe. So the chances of severe are still possible up there to the north, just in a lesser amount. So as we look into our next tab, we can compare that with the SBC outlook, which shows you the kind of the same thing, that orange zone there for enhanced level of severe weather. That is a level 3 of 5 risk on their end. Again, we have different scaling, so ours is level 4 of 6, and theirs is level 3 of 5. So kind of the same sort of risk zone there in the state. We also have to actually, we're going to go back here real quick. Go over the hazards before I go forward into the wind risk, general wind risk here. But we have right now a level 3 for tornadoes. That's mainly going to be across central Michigan, I-96 corridor, and north of 94. This may shift depending on what the models show overnight into to tomorrow. And again, the peak timing on your screen is 1 p.m. to 2 a.m. We go over to the severe wind outlook, which is basically the main driver as to why we have an elevated risk, level 4 of 6 out there. In the orange, a 25 to basically 40% chance that a storm will produce damaging winds. So if you think about the other way, it's a 60% chance to about 75% chance that a storm does not. And then elsewhere outside that, you can see 15 to 24%, 5 to 14%, and a 1 to 4% in blue. And lastly, kind of our tertiary threat here is going to be your hail risk. So there's not a level 4 risk for hail, but it is kind of the same exact zones for level 1 through 3, where you see a 15 to 24% chance of a storm producing hail there in the yellow. Main risk there is going to be with any cells that can become discrete in nature. Again, if cells are discrete in nature, that could produce stronger all hazard risk. Whereas if you get into a linear mode where you have a line of winds moving through, that kind of negates the damage or the damaging hail and the tornado risk just a little bit. But we could still see some more QLC estimates, kind of similar to what we've seen so far this year. Now we'll go over into our gusty winds outlook here for tomorrow across the state. You can see on the screen is a level 3 risk, which is 30 to 40 mile per hour winds. Again, these are non-thunderstorm wind gusts, so this is within the vicinity of the low. The low pressure system is very deep tomorrow. A lot of low-level winds blowing at about a mile over our head. and it's not going to be a surprise at all to see some of those winds gust down to the surface. Again, 30 to 40 miles per hour. There's some short-range models now that are coming out that could produce, that are showing that some areas could produce 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, primarily in the Thumb region there in the Saginaw Bay region. So it's going to be Saginaw up towards Sandusky and perhaps Au Sable there on your screen. Not on this map yet, but again, we have an update coming for you tomorrow morning with our next forecast update. So we're going to go through the reflectivity now on the screen. I'm going to bring our thing back in here so you guys can see some of our banners rolling across the screen. But here is your projected radar off the HRRR run, which is kind of our most reliable short-range model here. Starting tonight here at about 10 p.m., so about 3 hours from now, you can see a couple thunderstorms developing off some instability axes out there across southern Michigan. Storms tonight are not expected to be severe at all. Perhaps could be a quick downburst, maybe some small pea-sized hail, but again, not severe. Then as we roll into the overnight into tomorrow time frame, a MCS, mesoscale convective system, could roll through, and this could hinder some of our severe risk for tomorrow. Could zap some of the juice out of the air. Those storms would roll through pretty much in the morning hours before really 10 o'clock and then move off into Ontario there around 1 p.m. And then as we move into the 2 p.m. hour and later, you can see here comes our storms off of Lake Michigan. Some cells start to pop up near the Thumb as well. And then as we move into the 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock time frame, that's kind of when everything along the line moves in. That is there across southern Michigan. You can see some prefrontal cells here, which would be the main risk for perhaps a strong tornado, perhaps some larger hail, and of course, damaging winds. Moving forward into the 7 o'clock time frame, 8 o'clock, those cells kind of congeal into a line. And by 9 o'clock, the southeast Michigan region is pretty much engulfed in some of this rain and storm action. And as we move into the overnight hours, about midnight is when all this action is supposed to be said and done, with the exception of a lot of rain on the backside of this low, which could result in a flash flooding risk, which, Drew, I'm not sure if you saw today, but the Weather Prediction Center did issue a slight risk for excessive rainfall for portions of central and northern Michigan. So that is something that we'll have to watch for tomorrow. We'll likely have a rainfall graphic coming out in addition to the severe weather outlook tomorrow morning as well. And then as we move into the overnight hours, that rain does eventually start to move away. How does that stack up to our RFS model? Again, we use a bunch of different models here that we kind of factor in back and forth. Each one has its ups and downs, and each one has a projected reflectivity hour by hour, I guess you could say. So rolling forward here, it's about 2 a.m. tonight, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Moving to the overnight hours, you can see some of that pre-system rain could zap, again, some of that energy out of the atmosphere. However, by the time we get into that 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock time frame, some of those prefrontal cells do start to pop up across mainly the I-96 corridor, so a little bit further south, and then up towards Tri-Cities region, so that's Saginaw, Midland, Bay City, up towards the Thumb. And those cells could be very, very strong or even severe. Again, severe limits for any hazard, that would be 60 mile per hour winds, 1 inch plus hail, and of course, the chance for some tornadoes. So all these prefrontal cells out in front are going to be where the strongest of ingredients are going to be. However, this Boeing segment that does come up behind it is going to be a primarily damaging wind threat here. So you can see it's kind of a bimodal risk tomorrow where you have prefrontal cells and a squall line coming through. And that will move over into Detroit. This is going to be, we'll back it up here. This is 6 o'clock. So 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and 12 o'clock. So kind of similar to the HRRR run where it's pretty much done by midnight for the entire state. It'll be done for the west side here, it looks, by around 9 to 10 o'clock. So again, everything works from west to east across the state, so keep that in mind. Earlier finish time there. And then as we move into the NAM NST model, the NAM 3K model, this is the model that's been kind of our quote-unquote hype model for the last couple days. Drew and I know for sure. It's kind of been doing the highest possibility of what could happen tomorrow. So we're going to roll this forward here. This is going to be 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon. Not as much prefrontal rain out in front that could zap the energy out of the atmosphere, and that kind of has been the story with the NAM 3K. Then as we move into the 5 o'clock time frame, some of those cells do start to pop up out in front. However, it looks like the NAM has been trending a little bit further south in this run, so that could bring the warm front south along the 96 corridor instead of the US 10 corridor. And similar to the RRFS run, it has a line, a big squall line, kind of like a bow echo, moving through southern Michigan, primarily south of 96 here. And again, this is going to be backing it up 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. So pretty much when you're over there in southeast Michigan, it's going to be that 6 to 9 time frame. And we actually did just release a timing outlook on our Facebook page, Michigan Storm Chasers, there that you guys can go see. I'll actually bring it up here in just a second. And then by midnight, these storms do move off into Ontario. So the consistency here is that these storms should be done by midnight, which means it should be a nice sleep tomorrow night. Could keep the windows open, listen to some distant thunder rolling away, and some rain showers that will be kind of migrating around the area in the backside of the low. And then one last thing here is the severe weather risk for Thursday. Right now is a marginal risk from the SPC for primarily western and central UP. Again, UP is going to pretty much miss out on the severe weather risk for tomorrow. However, on Thursday, we could see some cells kind of move along that ridging pattern down from the northwest. So again, marginal risk is a level 1 of 5 on the SPC scale, and we'll have a severe weather outlook map from us here at Michigan Storm Chasers for you guys on our page tomorrow as well to cover this risk. And of course, we're also looking into the weekend for some hot temperatures coming up and perhaps a couple pulse thunderstorms, perhaps producing some damaging winds. But again, it's too far out to tell. We're going to be focusing on tomorrow and Thursday first and foremost over the next 2 days before we start looking at this weekend. Other than that, again, I'll bring up the timing map here on our Facebook page. It is readily available for you guys. We'll go ahead and scroll up here to it. And there it is. This is going to be your earliest start time if you guys kind of couldn't put that all together there that I was going over with the reflectivity runs. So it's kind of a mess. Bear with us here. Everywhere you see on the screen. Oh, that's the wrong button I wanted to press. Big-headed Joel there. There's your full screen map. You can see anywhere in the white is going to be prior to 2 o'clock, those prefrontal cells that start to pop up there, and then perhaps over into the east side of the state by 2 to 4, as well as southwest Michigan by 2 to 4, and then that kind of fills in from the 4 to 7 time frame there. And as mentioned, Detroit's going to be more towards that 6 to 9 o'clock time frame. Anywhere north of that dashed white line or dashed gray line you see there, it's going to pretty much be non-severe storms beyond starting by 4 to 7 o'clock. Again, marginal risk kind of exists up there, but right now we're not expecting too much to happen. So this is going to be pretty much south of, I would say that would be the M72 corridor for those living in northern Michigan. So if you live south of M72, that's going to be your best chance for perhaps some heightened severe risk tomorrow. And depending on how model runs go overnight, this could be shifting further south. So ideally for Michigan, we would want this low pressure system to take more of a southerly track, so everything tracks out of the state. And we have kind of been seeing a little bit of a south wobble in the latest runs, but right now it's still projected to impact southern Michigan from Grand Rapids over to Flint and points south the strongest, and perhaps upwards as far north as Mount Pleasant, Tri-Cities, and even Big Rapids there. So again, this is your earliest start time. This is not the time period that the storms are going to be existing between. This is the earliest start time you can project to see storms. So storms can be going beyond the time frame you see on your screen here. So this is to give you a heads up of when to expect storms at the earliest. Runtime on your screen there is from 1 to about midnight tomorrow night, as mentioned here in our stream. Other than that, that is all the information I have. Drew, is there anything I'm missing or anything you want to kind of chime in about here?
No, I think you kind of covered it all. I think the main 3 things that we're here at MSC that we're kind of looking for in terms of tomorrow is basically if there's going to be any morning convection that's happening tomorrow morning that could limit the severe threat. And then the second thing we'll probably be looking for is how far will that warm front go into our state. And then finally, what our storm mode would be. As Joel was kind of clicking through the models, you could kind of see some models were thinking it would be more of a linear setup, whereas some other models kind of showed more of a discrete nature. So I think those 3 things kind of summarize what we're all kind of looking at and still are kind of looking for additional details on in regards to tomorrow's threat.
Real quick, before we take more questions here, I'll go back and shout out our super chats here on YouTube. Again, thank you guys for supporting us on YouTube. If you do donate on YouTube, we'll shout out your comment. Thank you, Michigan Man, for becoming an EF1 member for your 5th month here on YouTube. Pam Dennis Hall, month number 11, saying hello and thanks, no problem. And Ashley with a $5 super chat asking, how does Calhoun County look? We just got slammed last month, just want to prepare if it will be similar. Right now, Drew, I don't know if there's an event that kind of comes to the top of your mind recently in terms of what this looks like. But right now, the ingredients are kind of set up similar to, I don't want to say May 7th. I want to say more towards like the March 30th event that we had earlier this year. Is that kind of where you're thinking, what you're thinking?
Yeah, I know there was a comment here that I saw here that was asking about if there would be any capping inversion associated with these storms, and that's with this setup, we're not really seeing that much of a cap. If we are, it's a weaker cap in place. So these storms will most likely kind of develop to our southwest, and they will race into our state. So yeah, it's I would say that's a rough good comparison, but addressing that comment, we're not really looking at any. There's really not a capping inversion that we're really seeing as of now that could be limiting these storms right now. It's more that warm front positioning that's kind of in question that could limit that severe threat depending on how far north it can get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I would probably compare this as well to the March 30th event. And again, storm motion is going to be pretty much southwest to northeast. We could see some embedded mesovortices, kind of similar to what we've seen in previous events. But again, what we've seen in our previous events is we haven't really seen, despite the fact that in previous events the models have been pumping out prefrontal cells, we haven't really seen that verify so far in our recent models yet this year. And this is another event where we could see prefrontals. And if we do, that would actually result in perhaps some stronger hazards, perhaps strong tornadoes that would be EF2 and higher, 70-mile-per-hour winds and greater, and then obviously some large hail, 1 to probably 2 inches in diameter. Although the lapse rates tomorrow are very, very poor. Again, we're looking for lapse rates. Again, lapse rate is the change of temperature with height. So as you go up in the atmosphere, it gets colder. The greater that temperature changes, the more unstable the atmosphere is going to be. Also leads to hail development. It gets colder a lot quicker, fast, so it gets, flash freezes. It's called super cooling, I guess you could say. And lapse rates are 5.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer. For reference, in meteorology, we need those to be like a 7 or higher. Upwards of 6 in spots, but for most part, 5.5 degrees Celsius and higher. So the only way we're going to get large hail tomorrow is if we get robust updrafts that keep funneling all that air upward and keeps those supercooled water droplets suspended in the air. And if that's possible, if that updraft is so strong, it's going to keep those ice crystals tumbling, accrete more ice, and it'll have to become heavy enough to drop out of the clouds, which means sometimes those hailstones could get over 1.5 inches in diameter. But as mentioned here early in the stream, that is the tertiary risk. The primary risk tomorrow are going to be damaging winds and isolated tornadoes, perhaps multiple, kind of similar to what we saw in the previous events this year. And there's a lot of shear out there tomorrow. Going through the ingredients of SLIM, shear, lift, instability, moisture. Again, shear is the spin, change of wind with height and direction. That value is, we look at storm relative helicity. We look for about 150 meters squared per second squared, and that number is about 300 to 400, so it's twice the amount we need. Lifting mechanisms, usually we just need like a front. We have a warm front, a cold front, and a low pressure system, so we have plenty of sources of lift tomorrow. Instability factor, we look for values over 1,000 joules of CAPE, and those numbers are 2,000 to 3,000. Drew, I'm not sure if you've seen higher, but I believe it's around 2,000 to 3,000, so it's 2 to 3 times the amount we need. And of course, moisture tomorrow, dew points are going to be in the 70s at times tomorrow, so that is a lot of moisture advecting in. That's going to keep storms pretty numerous in count, and then perhaps turning into one linear line as it moves across the state towards southeast Michigan. And I would not be surprised if you see the SBC outlook tomorrow move a little bit south and further east. So this could, by tomorrow morning, shift into southeast Michigan if the low pressure system continues to shift further south in the models.
Yeah, there's still going to be probably final shifts with the models in terms of low placement. We've seen that consistently with these models. There's already been some disagreements on, I guess, where the worst severe could be, but we still have a full day for things to have last second shifts. So just keep that in mind in terms of tomorrow. And yeah.
Yeah, and for reference, the Storm Prediction Center has their tornado risk at a 5%, which covers between 5 and 9%. We on here have issued a level 3, which is a 5 to 14%. So it's kind of the same category, but it includes a little bit higher probabilities. I would not be surprised if the SBC also upgrades their tornado risk tomorrow for a kind of discrete zone of where the cells could pop up before that line moves through. And that number on the SBC is 10% and higher. So again, they'll probably match it overnight tonight if the models continue to uptrend as they have been all day. Got a couple more members and comments in here on YouTube. Tommy, back for month number 10 as an EF0 member. Thank you, Tommy, saying thanks for everything. Thanks for the updates on the upcoming events. No problem, Tommy. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We got Raven in here with a $5 super chat asking, where do you guys think the best areas will be to storm chase tomorrow? It's a good question. Tomorrow, the best chances for storm chasing is going to be along the warm front. Again, that warm front, it's going to be interesting to see where it sets up. Again, there's also storms and an MCS moving through tonight that could shift the boundary for tomorrow. That boundary being the warm front, of course, further south if that boundary does set up further south. So right now, a good safe bet is along the 94 corridor. However, I would imagine if it goes further north, you would want to be kind of positioned along that 96 corridor. Drew, I'm sure you could probably agree with me there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of between that 96 and 94 corridor, kind of similar to what we saw with the previous events this year that have been hit over and over again. So we also have Not Summer in here with a $4.99 super chat. SBC mentions I-96 a lot in the product. Am I right? I am right off of 9669 in Eaton County. What does that mean for me? Again, because they're highlighting it that much, that is going to be where those prefrontal cells are most likely to occur. So kind of that bullseye zone for tomorrow is going to be that 127, kind of M66 corridor north and south, anywhere south of Elma and I would say Edmore. Further south along that 127 and M66 corridor there, those are going to be your bullseyes to watch for supercellular development tomorrow within all hazards risks.
And the good news for you guys that are more in northern lower Michigan and the UP, you guys will be north of the warm front. Basically, that drastically decreases your severe chances, especially any surface-based storms. So your damage wind, your tornado threat basically is non-existent by the time you get north of the warm front. So it's more along the warm front. The warm front has a lot of vorticity and spin right along that corridor. And that line that Joel kind of was showing earlier on that moves into our state, that line will most likely be producing tornadoes in Indiana, most likely down to our neighboring state. So
there's a better zoomed in view for you guys here of reflectivity for tomorrow. This is off the HRRR, as mentioned. Just a better zoomed in view. Just run it by you guys again. So this is going to be about 2 o'clock. I think this is not exactly where things are going to fire up, but hence, nevertheless, here you go. Some of those prefrontal cells moving through Grand Rapids as early as probably 4 o'clock, and then moving up towards the kind of the M46 corridor there, north of 96 and 69, and that kind of gets caught up from this back line of storms as you move into the 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock time frames. And as mentioned, should be done severe-wise out of the state by around midnight tomorrow night. So it's pretty much a 12-hour increment here between about noon tomorrow, as early as noon. I would say probably more towards that 1 and 2 o'clock time frame, to about midnight tomorrow night. So keep that in mind. Severe storms are possible at any time during that window, no matter where you're at in southern Michigan. Now, I mentioned the timing outlook, of course, earliest projected start time, but those prefrontal cells can fire anywhere and everywhere. So keep that in mind. Even if you're in the 4 to 7 start time frame, you could still see prefrontals before 4 o'clock. And if you're in Detroit, same thing applies there. You could still see prefrontals prior to 6 o'clock. Just got to have your head on a swivel. We'll be live covering if need be. Again, we are live on here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. Those are our 4 platforms that are live on every single time severe weather does strike. So make sure you are following us on at least 2 of those, just in case one platform decides to go down. Has happened in the past. We recommend obviously following us on YouTube. That is going to be your number 1 platform for live streaming. The community over here is a lot friendly and good times all around. So we also have a lot of mods over here that like chatting with you guys. So and thanks to the mods for moderating tonight. As always, you guys are awesome. Appreciate you very much.
another thing I'll add too is unlike kind of how Joel was making that comparison earlier on to March 30 is the timing. So I know a lot of people were nervous during May 15 because of the storms that were all happening during the night, and the majority of these storms are going on for tomorrow will most likely be during the day. So really the only locations that might get evening storms more would be more to the east side of the state. But once again, the west side and the central part of the state, that's going to be more during your kind of mid to late afternoon, early evening time frame. And keep in mind, the sun doesn't set until I believe close to, I think it's 9:15. I might be wrong there, but obviously when you have storms, it gets darker a lot quicker. But regardless, with us getting really close to summer solstice, that really increases our daylight time. So, which also gives more time for these storms to be strong to severe as well. But at least they're during the day, not during the night when people may be sleeping. So that's one plus for tomorrow.
Yeah, we're about 4 days away now from our longest day of the year, why did I say March? June 21st. That is the summer solstice. So again, a lot of daylight hours to heat up the atmosphere. Again, high temperatures tomorrow are going to be well into the 80s across much of southern Michigan, dew points in the 70s, and it's going to make those feels like temperatures well into the 90s tomorrow. So prior to these storms happening, it's going to be a hot one out there. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. If you are an adult, 3 liters of water per day, especially in the heat, is the recommendation. We got Kyle K here on YouTube with a $5 super chat asking, so tornadoes are more likely with the storms in front? The answer to that is yes and no, because we're going to still have the chance for tornadoes within that back line. However, likely weaker. Kind of similar to what we saw with our previous events this year. Again, if you want to see a stronger tornado, it needs to be kind of its own cell, so it can pull in a lot more inflow. If you have storms that are around it, obviously it's not going to be able to pull in more inflow. It's going to be called dirty inflow, and that's going to kind of hinder rotation in the storm. So if you have a cell that's all by itself, you can see on your screen here, for example, that cell projected at 6 o'clock tomorrow, right north of, I believe that's Pewamo, heading up towards Gratiot County. And now that's not projected the exact location where it could be, but it is a sign of the intensity of what cells could look like tomorrow. That cell right there, you can see all of that clean space from Lansing down to Jackson. That's all clean inflow being injected into the storm. That's going to allow the storm to rotate a lot quicker, especially within the vicinity of the low. A lot of those winds up there are spinning around. So when you get within this line of storms here on your screen from Muskegon down to Kalamazoo, all those storms are cutting each other off. So you're only going to get inflow in the front side of the storm if any of those winds can wrap in from the east. So more likely susceptible to spin-ups in that main line. Any cells out in front, stronger tornadoes. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys.
And another thing to point out too is right what Joel has right up there is right there. That's a rough time frame and with what the radar could look like, but that's right at 6 o'clock. And obviously it's a weekday, so we're gonna have a lot of people getting out of work during this time frame with all these storms that are happening. And that kind of just stresses the importance of always having multiple ways to receive warnings. I believe we have an MSC post out there
Yes.
on what are good and what are not so good ways to receive warnings. But just keep that in mind because that 6, 7 o'clock time frame is when a lot of people are getting out of work, and that's when these storms are going to be moving through the central part of the state, and they could have an all-hazard threat. So it's really important to make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings so you don't drive into these storms unknowing what the danger they might possess potentially.
Yeah, and another thing about tomorrow is we do plan on launching a weather balloon sometime around probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, somewhere in southern Michigan. Locations to be determined, but we'll probably stream it for you guys live on our Facebook page, provided we're not obviously already live for severe weather coverage. If so, obviously someone is there at the balloon launch could also take their cam live and show us launching it. But either way, we should have video up on our page of us launching that tomorrow, and that's going to help aid in showing charts like these what the atmosphere is actually doing in comparison to forecasts. So balloon launches get charts like what you see on your screen here. These are called soundings. Left side is a skew T, so it's like a 2D slice of the atmosphere from the ground up to the top of the atmosphere. And this is a top-down view of the atmosphere in terms of spin. So left side of the screen here is your change in temperature with height. That area between that dashed line and that red line is all of your CAPE. The more area you have there, the more CAPE that's developed. And you can see those CAPE values, 3,278 joules of CAPE. Again, that magic number for severe weather is 1,000, so we have about 3 times the amount of instability needed for storm development. because it's also really hot tomorrow. That dashed line never crosses that red line, so that means there is no cap tomorrow. So storms will be able to pretty much develop everywhere. I will say there's a very, very weak cap, -7. That number needs to be closer to minus kind of 75 to minus 100 for a significant capping inversion. With a low number like that, or I should say a high, because it's more towards 0. A high number like that could make these storms be more supercellular in nature, because you have a weak cap that provides kind of like a 50-50 shot of it being a storm here or a storm not there, if that makes any sense. So again, we're going to get a balloon launched tomorrow. It's going to give us data like this in real time versus what's here on the forecast side of things. And then as you can see on the right side of the screen, this is what's called a hodograph. So that's your spin with height. When we see these C-shaped kind of C-shapes, that's usually spin as you go up with height. So down there at the surface where it says 0, that is your wind out of the southeast, and then it changes from out of the south and out of the southwest as you get up towards the 3 kilometer, 4 kilometer, 5 kilometer height. This is not the best hodograph for tomorrow, but it still paints a very good picture in terms of how much spin is going to be out there in the atmosphere for tomorrow. This is kind of similar to what we saw in events earlier this year. So there's some larger C shapes out there for sure. This is just one I pulled from around the 96 corridor near Lake Odessa. So keep that in mind. A lot of spin, a lot of lift, a lot of shear, a lot of moisture. Pretty much everything in slim needed for tomorrow in an uncapped atmosphere. So severe weather is likely across the state tomorrow. Sorry, I can ramble about the sciencey stuff all day. Hopefully you guys can kind of understand it a little bit.
Another thing I'll note too, I don't know if you've been noticed this too, Joel, but if we have a few extra storms that kind of form ahead, every storm that's ahead of another storm will take the juice out of the atmosphere. So that's just something to be mindful about. If we have a lot of storms that pop up, like let's just say the whole entire radar just has a bunch of storms everywhere, each storm is going to take advantage of the environment given that place, and it will kind of zap the environment. So I did notice there was one run where it had a few cells ahead, those prefrontals, and they took advantage of that environment, and then the storms behind it were actually capped because they had less instability left over, which would slightly weaken those. So that's just something to be mindful about. Like I said, there's still a few things that need to be ironed out. So what you're seeing, right in front of you right now, it could be a little bit different in terms of how it could all play out. So it's not, I guess one comparison I'll make is kind of when we were watching May 15, the models kind of were honing down on what to expect. And we kind of knew what to expect kind of going into it, as maybe as early as a day out on what the storm mode would be, what the radar feature would look like roughly. And that's kind of how it played out. But this, like I said, there's been a few models that have shown a line, some show prefrontals. And yeah, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. But we'll have you guys covered as always.
Yeah, a good analogy to kind of think about there is the atmosphere is kind of like a gas station that never refills until like maybe the next day. The storms use the fuel, the instability, the cape in the atmosphere to kind of blossom into these big severe thunderstorms. That cape does not replenish usually until the next day. So if storms approach that environment that was tapped into by a storm ahead of it, it's going to pretty much kind of fall apart. That's the best way to put it, unless it's pulling in cape from nearby areas that haven't seen severe weather happen. So yeah, the atmosphere's like a gas station. There's fuel out there. Storms need it for strong severe storms to develop. And yeah, it's the best way I can put it there. A couple more super chats and members here. We actually have Evan gifting 5 memberships for our YouTube subscribers. Again, if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, it is free to do. And if you are a subscriber, check your account. You may have just been gifted 5 memberships, or a membership courtesy of Evan. So thank you, Evan. Patricia with a $1.99 super chat asking, what is the best time to drive from Roscommon to Detroit? My answer real quick for that would probably be before 2 o'clock tomorrow. After that, kind of all hands on deck. All cards are off the table there. It is probably like a 2 to 3 hour drive, I would imagine. So probably want to leave by no later than noon just to avoid, for sure, all of the storm action. And then we have Mike in here with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you, Mike, for that. Now, there's a bunch of fairs this week and some festivals. I know Electric Force Fest is actually happening this week in Rothbury. tomorrow's not a great day to be out there. Again, this severe weather, capable of all hazards, going to make it a very big washout. Same for any fairs going on. And of course, even if you do not get any severe hazards, frequent cloud-to-ground lightning is possible with how much instability we have out there tomorrow. So again, it's one of nature's leading killers. You do not want to be outside when you hear thunder. If thunder roars, go indoors and wait at least 30 minutes after the last lightning strike or thunder rumble has occurred.
For those wondering, we're going to be looking. So, if anyone's wondering where these storms are going to start initiating, we're going to be mainly looking around the state of Illinois, right along the maybe even Illinois-Indiana border, is kind of where the storms are going to first develop, and that's where we're going to be roughly looking at. So, those storms will quickly mature, just given the environment in place. I know Joel mentioned the instability values here in Michigan, but they're even higher in states like Illinois and Indiana, where I believe their Cape values are as high as 4,000, I believe. So they have an even stronger environment, in terms of the instability that's in place right now. So, Joel, do you have access to the sounding that Chandler had from last week at all, or no? Yeah, our test launch. Yeah, I can talk about it. So, for those that remember, last week, Monday, I believe, we had a slight risk. And if anyone was paying attention on our Facebook, we were posting about the environment that day. We had several staff and chasers that were at Intermet, and we did a test balloon launch, which actually was kind of really nice because we had a chance of severe weather. So, we were able to do some, basically do a sounding. So, this was a sounding that was conducted right around the Grand Rapids area, really close to the National Weather Service office in Grand Rapids, actually. And we actually were able to do the sounding just before storms initiate. I believe, Joel, it was like 10 to 15 minutes later that we had storm development. So a perfectly timed sounding, in my opinion, and kind of what the environment looked like for that day.
Yep. Sorry, I realized that Drew, you could hear me, but the crowd couldn't hear me for a second. I was trying to mute because there's a little bit of an echo on my end, so apologize if you guys can hear Drew, but
sorry.
No, it's on my. You don't have to say sorry, Drew. It's on my end. My speaker's very loud, so. But yeah, this is an example of a balloon launch that we did, our first test launch, as Drew mentioned, on a sneaky surprise slight risk day. You can see that there's not really much of a big C in your photograph here on the right side of the screen. It's more of a speed shear sounding, so it kind of just gradually gets speedier from the southwest to northeast as you get higher in the atmosphere. So that's your first kilometer, second kilometer, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you get higher up, it gets faster. So, and then you can see here on the left side of the screen, there's your instability. There was a lapse rate of 10 degrees Celsius per kilometer. It's pretty, very, very high. Remember, we mentioned lapse rates of 7 degrees, 7 degrees Celsius per kilometer being the kind of the bullseye for good lapse rates, and that one was 10. However, that was in the lowest 3 kilometers of the atmosphere where it was above freezing, so hail's not likely to form, obviously where it's above freezing. So, again, these soundings are very cool. You can see there data was recorded all the way up to the 200 millibar height, which is about 11 kilometers up, so it went pretty high, and eventually popped near Elma. So if you live up near Elma, and you haven't been out in your fields lately, you might see a weather balloon out there somewhere. So feel free to check it out, see if it landed. Would have landed last Monday. Not sure if it would be buried by now. A couple more super chats and numbers coming in here. We have Jaden with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you, Jaden. Summer back for month number 12. Saying thanks for all you guys do. I've been here since 2023. Yes, Summer's one of our originals here, one of our OGs. Thank you, Summer. Appreciate your support as always. Elizabeth sending 1 gifted membership here on YouTube, as well as becoming a member for month number 9. Thank you, Elizabeth. We have Julie back for month number 13 asking, SBC watch party tonight. Drew and I will have to kind of get together about that afterward. We want to be ready for tomorrow. We want to make sure we have enough sleep, enough rest in our system tonight to make sure we can stay up, for 12 hours throughout the afternoon hours tomorrow. Because it could be a long stream tomorrow. It could be an 8-hour plus stream. We'll see. Fingers crossed, it's not, but the potential is there. It would be one of our longest streams. Another reason to watch us on YouTube, for those who are wondering, is Facebook allows us to only stream for 8 hours at a time. So if you exceed that 8-hour time limit, then it would literally automatically cut us off on Facebook. So it's a good reason, good idea to follow us on YouTube. Again, I can't even speak right now. The subscribe button it's in red. It does not mean that you have to pay for it. It's completely free to do as long as you have a Google account. Feel free to hit it and follow us here. And again, another positive for YouTube is you can turn on notifications so you know when we go live. Whereas Facebook doesn't really have that option unless you're one of the lucky ones that got to do it back when we were testing out notifications and they were all bugged out. So good idea to follow us on YouTube if you haven't already. Again, if it's an 8-hour plus stream tomorrow, it would only be on YouTube and Twitch afterward. Kristen with 10 gifted memberships for our YouTube subscribers. Thank you, Kristen. We got George with a 2-hour super chat saying storms are firing near St. Joseph County right now. That is true. That is part of our MCS that is supposed to come through later tonight, as you can see here on the model run. Those are those showers down there you can see popping up tonight. It could be popping up as far north as Grand Rapids. And again, those are not expected to be severe, but those will roll across into the east side of the state overnight into tomorrow morning, eventually move out by around noon tomorrow. Tyler Fisher, welcome to the channel as an EF0 member. Thank you very much. Drew, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to comment on, the storms that are happening right now in southern Michigan are mostly instability driven. There's very little shear out there, so we're not really expecting these storms to be severe, but definitely some heavy downpours and some lightning are definitely possible with those cells along the Michigan-Indiana border right now.
Yeah. We have a request in here from Alzek with a 199 super chat asking to look at the RAP and the NAM precipitation totals for tomorrow. We'll go ahead and do that right now. Total precipitation accumulation, yeah, that is definitely something to keep in mind. Now, again, the NAM is one of our hyper models, which shows us pretty much the worst thing that could happen. But that is perhaps upwards of 2, maybe 2.5 inches of rain tomorrow across portions of central and southern Michigan if that low can stay sustained over the area. We'll switch over to the RAP as well. The RAP kind of shows the same thing. Widespread 1.5 to maybe 2.5 inches of rain for much of this day. So much needed rain. Fingers crossed, especially for the Tri-City region, central Michigan, so Mount Pleasant over to Bay City. Currently in a drought. This rain would help, and we need it, especially across central Michigan. Elsewhere outside of central Michigan, there's not as much dryness out there, so this could be a best-case scenario in terms of where the heaviest rain does fall around. Now, again, it will fall all in a short amount of time, so flash flooding is possible tomorrow, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as we roll into the evening hours overnight into Thursday. Yes, Dam always chooses violence. This
is true.
Yeah, this is true. Everyone should know that. The NAM model is always the worst case scenario. Trisha with a 4.99 super chat here on YouTube. I have a movie in Grand Rapids at 5:30. Should I read? HE Duel. I'm not sure what that means. Drew, do you have any idea what that means?
Sorry, what was the question?
I have a movie at 5:30 in GR. Should I read He Duel? I don't know. I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But if you have a movie at 5:30, I will say that was going to be around the peak timing for severe weather tomorrow evening. So, again, as Drew mentioned, right around when everyone's getting out of work tomorrow, in that 6 o'clock time frame, mainly for West Michigan, that's when the severe weather is likely to kind of peak. So keep that in mind if you have plans around the early evening hours tomorrow, late afternoon. Could be significantly hindered by severe weather. Got more generosity over here on YouTube tonight. More gifted memberships being given out, again, courtesy of Evan with 10 for those lucky subscribers here on YouTube. Thank you, Evan, as always. One of our longtime members here as well. Tyler with a $2 super chat asking what time should the worst be hitting the Grand Rapids and surrounding areas. So kind of similar to what I just said there. Around that 5 o'clock is the main time frame. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, as early as probably 3:30 or 4-ish. Okay, I'm getting grilled in the
Oh,
comments. I meant
it's
reschedule.
reschedule. That makes
Thank you.
sense.
You know, I know so much lingo, but that was something I've never seen before. So,
I think if I would have seen the comment, I would have gotten it. But just
yeah,
hearing it just didn't sound right.
yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you guys for your super chats. Appreciate it. Alzek back with another 199 super chat. The NAM and the GFS have similar totals of rain. GFS? GFS. Okay, so the thing about this GFS is it's very low quality, so the spacing of the model is further apart, so it doesn't show like well-defined rain totals, but it still does show at least 1.5 inches to maybe 2 inches there across portions of central and west Michigan tomorrow. So again, good rain coming tomorrow, and again we'll have a rainfall map coming to you guys tomorrow morning for the rain that's projected between tomorrow afternoon and Thursday morning. Around noon is probably when it's going to be all said and done for at least just normal rain. If you guys have donated stars on Facebook, we do appreciate you guys very much. They do not come through on our end. We can't really see them. So, again, we thank you guys very much for those who have donated on Facebook. Yeah, we can do a recap. So, for those who missed it earlier today, I'm going to have to go ahead and take the banner off the bottom of the screen here so you guys can see it full. So, here is our in-house forecast. So, this is not the SBC forecast, but this is one that we conjured up ourselves. This is a level 4 of 6 risk, or if you look at the SBC, it's basically the same thing as a level 3 of 5. 4, primarily damaging winds, with a secondary threat being tornadoes, and a tertiary threat being large hail tomorrow across mainly southern and central Michigan. The hazards, or the probabilities, go down the further away you get from that orange zone. So, again, just because you're in the green or the yellow does not mean you're out of the clear by any means. Those probabilities are still there. Excuse me. Even up there as far north as Sheboygan in the level 1 risk. Moving it into the tornado risk, kind of breaking this mapping apart, you can see the tornado risk is kind of confined and centralized over that US 10 region and points south down to 94. Outside of that, big broad region of a 3 to 5% risk in the level 2 zone there in green. Level 1, a 1 to 3% chance of a storm producing a tornado, and then elsewhere in the 0, a less than 1% chance. Severe wind outlook. That shows you your pretty much the same thing as the normal severe weather outlook. It's wind driven, so a 25 to 40% chance of damaging winds within any storm in that orange zone. Level 4, level 3, 15 to 24% chance, and those odds go down as you get into level 1, level 2. Again, the odds are still there. Just because it's lower does not mean you're out of the woods completely. And then, as always, we have the hail tertiary threat, a 15 to 24% chance in yellow there in the level 3 zone, pretty much all of southern Michigan and central Michigan, and then a level 2 there for portions of the thumb up there towards Grayling, Cadillac, and then a level 1 up as far north as the bridge. So that is your recap. Again, we'll go through the projected reflectivity run for tomorrow. This may not be completely accurate, but this is a good indication of what storm mode could be. So this is overnight into tomorrow morning. Thunderstorms kind of rolling down the 96-94 corridor. Not supposed to be severe. 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and out of the state pretty much by noon. However, cells start to fire up as soon as 1 o'clock across portions of central Michigan, perhaps even along 75. We get to 3 o'clock there, 4 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. Those cells start to become more numerous, and the line of storms, the primary line of storms that's going to produce more of a kind of damaging wind risk with embedded tornadoes, moves in around 6, 7, 8 towards Lansing, towards 75, up towards Tri-Cities, and then through Detroit and over into the thumb by 9 to 10 o'clock. So for those who missed the timing map, it is on our Facebook page. It was a really hard timing map to make, considering these prefrontal cells are going to kind of throw everything off, as mentioned earlier in the stream. And the timing map, you can see parts of the state are in a start time as early as 4 to 7 o'clock. However, prefrontal cells can still fire before the time frames listed. So in Detroit, for example, Oakland County down towards Ann Arbor, they're in a 6 to 9 o'clock p.m. start time. That could be superseded by prefrontal cells earlier than 6 o'clock. So the map was kind of generated with the main line off to the back side here. In line, you can see from Muskegon to Kalamazoo. But you can see those cells kind of pop up anywhere and everywhere ahead of that main line. So it's a very hard forecast for timing purposes tomorrow. So that's why in our forecast maps, the broad range is any time between 1 o'clock and midnight tomorrow. So an 11-hour time frame where you really should just be on alert no matter what for severe weather, no matter where you are at in the Lower Peninsula, primarily south of M72. So that's a line pretty much across from Traverse City over to about Harrisville there in the northeast lower part of the state. So that is your recap. Again, we have a bunch of ways to receive warning on our Facebook page, as well as places to take shelter. I encourage you guys to go check them out. I'll actually pull them up here just to go over them real quick. Just in case you guys need a little bit of a refresher, it has been a while since we've had kind of a widespread statewide severe weather risk. Your Midland weather radios are the best option. The version WR120 are the best. You can get them for about $40 or $50 at your hardware store or online. Obviously, if you get them online, they're not going to come in time by tomorrow, but for future weather events, it's a good idea to order them online. Otherwise, you can pick them up at a local hardware store. Those are possible to get there. Usually like Ace or Walmart can have them. The next best thing is going to be toggling on those wireless emergency alerts, also called WEAs, on your phone. Go into your settings, make sure those are turned on. Those alert you for primarily tornado warnings and tornado emergencies. They don't really do severe thunderstorm warnings unless it's a destructive severe thunderstorm warning, which would be for 80-mile-per-hour winds and or 2.75-inch hail, which we don't really expect tomorrow at the current time. But things do change. Again, that low-level jet is screaming across the state tomorrow. No exaggeration there. So we'll see. Maybe upwards of 80 is possible tomorrow. Right now, I would say as high as 70. So that's why we say the next best thing is going to be download free weather alert apps themselves. They'll get you all the alerts. For example, we have the emergency app by the Red Cross and the FEMA app. Those are both good apps for weather alerts there on your phone. They can be toggled for certain ranges, certain portions of the state. You can also add multiple locations, I know, in the emergency app to keep track of. If you have family in one part of the state and yourself in another, you can keep track of it on there. Obviously, us here at Michigan Storm Chasers, we have alerts posted automatically on our Facebook page and our X page. Now, if you follow us on X, our username is MI Storm Chasers. You can turn on notifications, and you'll get your alerts across as soon as those are issued on there. Just another way to receive a warning. Next best thing there is going to be tuning in on television and TV apps. Obviously, we're going to be live tomorrow, but TV is also live tomorrow for especially tornado warnings. We'll be live for every single warning from beginning to end. Disclaimer there. That is our motto. Next thing down is going to be checking radar before you go. Obviously, if you're going to be busy tomorrow, you want to keep a radar on you handy. The number one recommendation from me is radar scope. I'm sure Drew Kai agree with me there in terms of a radar app. I know Radar Omega is also a good option. However, it's a little bit more complex and also requires a subscription. Next thing down, which is an okay option, is called the buddy system. So that means you're relying on another person to keep you updated, such as a friend or family member. So not the best option, but if you know you have a family member that follows the weather more than you do, it's a good option there. Make sure they're reliable in getting you the proper information for tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm warnings, and all that jazz. And then obviously the worst way to receive warning, but it is still a way to receive warning nonetheless, are outdoor warning sirens, also called tornado sirens. Reason being is because they are inconsistent. Again, they're not sounded by the National Alert Service unless the districts have automated systems set up to where they automatically are toggled when a warning is issued. But most kind of places around the state, they really take a while to issue them. They also go on and off at certain times, so they have to run for only a certain amount of time before they overheat and they have to turn them off. There's just a bunch of different factors that go into it. And obviously the number one reasoning there, they're called outdoor warning sirens for the reasoning that you're not supposed to hear them indoors. So they're only used for if you're caught outside without technology and have no other way to receive warning. It's only a bonus if you hear them inside, if you're close enough to hear them inside. So again, do not rely on just the warning sirens. We recommend that you have, besides the sirens, 2 other ways on this list to receive warning as you go about your day tomorrow. So that is your ways to receive warning, and we have a bunch of information on our Facebook page you guys can go check out. Again, our Facebook page is Michigan Storm Chasers with the little blue check mark next to it. Make sure to follow us there. We have posts coming all day tomorrow as well. And yeah, we have like 415,000 followers, so it should be pretty easy to find our page there. So give us a follow if you haven't. More comments coming in here before we kind of hop off. Kristen becoming an EF2 membership, or EF2 member here on our YouTube channel. Thank you, Kristen. Husky Mom, $2 super chat. Sierra Lindsay recommended that I join you guys. Thank you for the shout out, Sierra. And thank you for joining us, Husky. Appreciate you. I believe Sierra chases with Reed Timmer, if I'm not mistaken, or used to at least.
I think she chases with Jordan Hall. I think that.
Gotcha.
Just
okay.
Yeah.
One of the big names out there, so that's a good honor to have. We have the one asking, what time for St. Joseph, Michigan tomorrow in Berrien County? I want to watch for waterspouts with the supercells. That is going to be pretty much probably 2 o'clock. I would say maybe get out there a little bit earlier, probably closer to maybe 1, just to give you a little bit of time to kind of set up. But 2 o'clock and later is going to be your ideal timing for waterspout watching tomorrow on Lake Michigan. Aaron with a $4.99 super chat here on YouTube. Will storms really late tonight, early Wednesday be severe? The answer to that is not likely. However, they will affect how storms develop tomorrow and where the boundary will set up. Again, that boundary being the warm front for tomorrow's storm. So if that boundary shifts super far south, then our severe risk will significantly I can't even speak. That's so many S's. Significantly shift south as well. So more towards the I-94 corridor and places south of that. But right now we're expecting this, as it stands, to be bullseye zone being 96 corridor, pretty much from Muskegon all the way across to Howell and even over towards Detroit and places surrounding. So that's going to be right where the warm front is expected right now. But again, models change frequently, and we're going to be kind of into that time frame tomorrow. We're going to be more now casting over watching the models. So again, that's where we're going to be watching the boundary setup. We'll keep an eye on it. Trisha with a $1.99 super chat saying, I meant reschedule the movie, LOL. We got it. Yeah. Sorry, I was not familiar with the slogan there, or the acronym. We have LI becoming an EF0 member here on YouTube as well. Thank you, LI. If we do a watch party tonight, it will be for members only, so if you are a paid member on YouTube, now again, that is totally optional, but if you want to become a paid member, it does help support our operational costs here at Michigan Storm Chasers, such as our balloon launches and all of our weather miles, just to name a few things. You will get access to perhaps a watch party that we do later tonight. And again, Drew and I will discuss this after we are done here, and probably put a post out on Facebook and X as to whether or not we'll actually do it tonight. Again, we do want to get some sleep tonight before we are tracking for perhaps 10 to 12 hours tomorrow. So keep that in mind. You don't want to see us dragging our heads tomorrow while severe weather rolls through. We got to be on our A game. But other than that, the recap has been done. I believe that is all I have. Again, peak storm timing for tomorrow is going to be from 1 p.m. to midnight. For those who are just tuning in and might have missed everything, 1 p.m. to midnight is time frame to look out for anytime during that time, no matter where you're at in the Lower Peninsula. If you missed any of this information, as soon as the stream is done here, you can go back and watch it on YouTube, start over from the beginning, and make sure you have subscribed on YouTube if you haven't already, especially if we do hit that 8-hour time frame tomorrow during our stream. Again, it's going to cut off automatically on Facebook. It'll continue here on YouTube. So if we start, for example, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock tomorrow, it would last about until 10 o'clock, so it could be a problem for people that are watching on the east side of the state. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into our sponsors here real quick. Again, what we do is not free for sure, especially now that we do weather balloon launches. We have all these sponsors that do help support us here at Michigan Storm Chasers. Feel free to write down these numbers if you see any one of these businesses that are in your area. Again, those numbers are there, so feel free to pause the stream as we go through them. Starting off with StormGuard Roofing and Construction, based out of North Metro Detroit. Number there is on your screen. Got Lifestyle Exteriors, based out of the Central Michigan region, from Lansing all the way up to Traverse City. Katz Roofing and Siding, another Lansing-based business, also down towards Potterville and Battle Creek. Number there is also on your screen. For all your powder coating needs, our only powder coating business here at Michigan Storm Chasers, contact Pro Powder, based out of South Haven. Mike Hayes Roofing and Siding, based out of the Thumb region, Sanilac, St. Clair County. McKay Tree Specialists, your one-stop shop for all tree services across Southeast Michigan. And for West Michigan, that will be Kuiper Tree Care. In Kalamazoo County, Gull Lake Tree Pro. For all your barn dominium needs, FBI Buildings is your place to go. Got On Top Roofing, based out of Livingston County. Schneider Commercial Building Solutions, based out of Lansing for all of your commercial roofing needs. And Shield Public Adjusters, also based out of Lansing, for all of your adjustments for insurance purposes. Got Floor Covering International out of Michiana for all of your flooring needs there. And some of our newer sponsors, Top Gun Roofing and Exteriors, based out of West Michigan. And joining us this week, A-Class Construction and Restoration, based out of Mason County, so up there towards Ludington. That is your one-stop shop for all of exterior home improvement needs there in that portion of the state. And as always, we have a large network of Skycams, courtesy of Guardian Technologies here in the state of Michigan. Places such as Burton, we have one in Charlotte, Ionia. Just to name a few over there, even in Manistee as well, we have a Skycam there on top of the Hampton Inn. Thank you, Guardian, for all of your help and support and sponsoring us here at Michigan Storm Chasers as we use these cameras for spotting severe weather across the state. Seeing as there's no more super chats here on the screen, Drew, is there anything else you want to add before we hop off to the night that we might have missed so far in this 1 hour long live stream?
No, I think we kind of went over everything in regards to tomorrow. I guess a few reminders is the vitals keep shifting a bit. We could have easily a few more adjustments that we could see with warm front positioning. And for all those that are going to be out and about tomorrow, stay safe. Always have multiple ways to receive warnings. And if you guys want to, after the storms come through, if you guys want to send in reports of damage, if we do get any damage, feel free to send that to our Michigan Weather Report page on Facebook.
Yeah, we have those community groups available for you guys. As Drew mentioned, Michigan Weather Reports is our place to send damage reports. You can also join us on Discord. We have a Discord server with a channel for submitting your damage reports there. The mods will probably link it in chat. It is discord.gg/Michigan Storm Chasers. When you join, make sure you set your nickname as a valid first name and the county you are from, so we know exactly where you're sending in your damage reports from, of course. But yeah, we also have a storm community on Facebook called Michigan Storm Community. That is there for just general storm posts and stuff like that. So, other than that, I believe that is everything. If you want to, I see there's a comment about the cameras here. A good sight line, if you want to become a camera sponsor, you can reach out to us at contact@michiganstormchasers.com. Make sure you have a good sight line and we'll consider it. Anything else here? I'm just going through the questions real quick. Yes, thank you, sponsors. Can we put cameras on weather balloons? They would not survive that long, and they would also kind of hinder the buoyancy of the balloon as well and kind of make it wild and wacky, and would make the data kind of inaccurate. So, I mean, it is possible, but it kind of comes to the sacrifice of the data we get. But we are going to head off for tonight. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be maybe live with another briefing tomorrow morning, also to be determined. We got a lot of graphics to get out tomorrow as well, so we're going to be busy over the next 12 to 24 hours. And then obviously on Thursday as well, we do have that marginal risk in place for portions of the Western UP. Maybe we'll extend over into West Michigan late Thursday night. We'll have to keep an eye on it because I know model runs right now have shown pop-up storms perhaps strong on Thursday for portions of the Lower Peninsula. So keep an eye on it. The main thing we're watching right now is going to be our severe risk for the day tomorrow during Wednesday, primarily after 1 p.m. So thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. From yours truly, Chief Meteorologist Joel Fritzma, alongside Drew Brummel, we're going to sign off for the night. We'll catch you guys later here at Michigan Storm Chasers, and we hope you guys have a great night. Sleep well, stay cool, and we'll talk to you guys soon.